The Recovery Kernel. Global Nightlife Health Initiative. The Safety Net. Festival Pre-Exposure Protection Protocol. For people who are going to the festival anyway. DNA first. Party second. Match before you accept. For the person going to the party. For the person already exposed. For the person who can drink everyone under the table and thinks that means they're fine. A note before you begin. Classical building the centurion, the safety net is not permission. It is precision. The Recovery Kernel Compendium section 15.5 states it directly, the safety net becomes the hammock when it removes the need to develop the capacity to stand on your own. This guide is not a safety net designed to be lived in. It is scaffolding, erected when you need it, taken down when you don't, present when the building is still finding its structure. This guide exists for 3 people. All 3 need the same first step: know your genomic profile before the invitation arrives. The Safety Net Framework. Classical building the centurion, 3 layers: pre-exposure, during exposure, post-exposure. The compendium's HIV architecture paper articulates the framework precisely for a different domain: Layer 1, pre-execution firewall, PrEP. Layer 2, emergency rollback, PEP. If a breach is suspected, PEP acts as a system restore point. Layer 3, trusted node verification. The same architecture applies to substance pre-exposure protection. Protocol 01, DNA first, before the invitation arrives. Classical building the centurion, the decision window is not at the door of the venue. It is at your kitchen table, 3 weeks before. The Recovery Kernel's prevention framework begins here. The genomic profile is the single most important piece of information you can have before any substance encounter. Not because it will always tell you to stay home. Because it will tell you exactly what is at stake for your specific biology if you go. 1.1, the testing sequence. Order 30x whole genome sequencing, WGS, Nebula Genomics, Dante Labs, sequencing.com. Download your VCF file when results arrive. This is the one-time foundational investment. If cost is a barrier, 23andMe or Ancestry raw data as an interim, analyzed through Genetic Genie for MTHFR and COMT. Run the biohacker_multi_domain_profiler.py against your VCF. Command, Python 3 biohacker_multi_domain_profiler.py your_genome.vcf. Import your 16 domain codes into the biohacker dashboard, biohacker_final_edition_with_json_import.html. Enter your weight. The dashboard outputs your specific supplement stack, peptide recommendations, and domain-specific vulnerability profile. Run the substance interaction checker against your CYP450 profile. This is your go/no-go database. It is not a warning label. It is a precision tool. Save your results. Take them to the festival. Know what you are walking into. 1.2, what you are looking for. Protocol 02, the PRE match, before you accept the invitation. Classical building the centurion, the most powerful decision point is 3 weeks before the festival, not at the gate. The pre-match is the specific moment this guide is built for, the text arrives. The invitation lands. Your friends are going. The festival looks extraordinary. The question is not, should I go? The question is, what does my genomic profile tell me about what I will encounter there, and what do I need to know before I say yes? 2.1, the pre-match sequence. Identify the festival's primary substance profile. Different venues, cities, and events have documented primary substance profiles. Use the World Genomic Map, the companion document to this guide, to identify what you will most likely encounter. Berlin MDMA, ketamine, GHB. Ibiza MDMA, cocaine, GHB, ketamine in heat. Tel Aviv GHB, meth, mephedrone, chemsex. Bogota cocaine at altitude. Run the substance interaction checker. Input your CYP450 profile from the DNA profiler output. The checker identifies which substances carry specific elevated risk for your genome. This is your personal go/no-go database for this specific event. Identify your hard no list. The substances that the interaction checker flags as high risk for your specific variants. Write them down. Tell the person you are going with. I am CYP2D6 poor, MDMA at standard doses is not safe for me. I am GABA2 high risk, alcohol is my specific vulnerability. I am AKT1T/T, any cannabinoid, especially synthetic, carries psychosis risk for me. The pre-match makes this explicit before the social pressure of the venue makes it harder to say. Decide your harm reduction tier. 3 tiers of festival engagement: full abstinence, no substances. The domain code output and hard no list make clear the risk is unacceptable for this event. Managed reduction, some substances but with specific modifications, lower dose, no redosing, specific timing, not mixing, full engagement, with the loading protocol, mitigation protocol, and post-exposure protocol fully loaded. Know which tier you are in before you arrive. Load the PRE exposure stack. Protocol 3 begins 48 hours before the event regardless of your tier decision. 2.2, the substance quick reference card. Copy this to your phone. Know these before the invitation arrives. Protocol 03, the MTHFR revelation, you might not know you are. Classical building the centurion, you can drink all your friends under the table. That might be the MTHFR talking. This is one of the most important and most counterintuitive messages in this guide. The person who can handle it, who drinks more than anyone, who recovers faster than anyone seems to, who can take more and feel less, may not be constitutionally strong. They may be MTHFR. 3.1, why high tolerance may be a warning sign, not a superpower. The conventional interpretation, high alcohol tolerance equals physically robust, genetically advantaged, can handle more than average. The recovery kernel interpretation, high tolerance in an MTHFR carrier may reflect a different pharmacological reality. Classical building the centurion, the compendium's MTHFR signal, sensitivity to alcohol, hangovers are severe MTHFR possible +1. The compendium identifies severe hangovers as a MTHFR phenotypic signal. The other side of that coin, some MTHFR carriers with warrior COMT, fast dopamine clearance, do not have severe hangovers in the obvious sense. Their fast COMT clears the dopaminergic signal quickly, so they feel they've recovered when the methylation damage is ongoing. The absence of a painful hangover is not absence of impact. The specific MTHFR tolerance paradox for the festival context. MTHFR impairs glutathione production. Reduced antioxidant capacity. Oxidative damage accumulates without the signal of immediate illness. MTHFR impairs homocysteine clearance. Cardiovascular and neurological damage accrues silently with each alcohol event. MTHFR reduces neurotransmitter synthesis. Lower baseline reward signal. More substance needed to achieve effect. Higher cumulative exposure per event. MTHFR impairs methylation recovery. The neurotransmitter systems depleted by substance exposure take longer to rebuild than they appear to from the outside. The person who handles it fine is doing more damage per event than they know. The person who gets hammered quickly is receiving an accurate biological signal and stopping sooner. Tolerance is not immunity. It is often a metabolic warning in disguise. 3.2, the MTHFR self-check for the festival context. Answer these before the next event. Score 3+ equals run the test or start the MTHFR protocol empirically. If you score 5+, start the MTHFR priority stack immediately. 5 MTHF 400 micrograms morning, methylcobalamin 1000 micrograms sublingual morning, magnesium glycinate 400 mg evening, and get the DNA test. Do not take another supplement with folic acid while you determine your status. The specific festival instruction, if you are suspected or confirmed MTHFR, the recovery time after any substance event is your most reliable guide. If your recovery is consistently longer, harder, or more severe than peers at equivalent exposure, your MTHFR is the likely explanation. Use that information to calibrate your exposure level, not to justify it. Protocol 04, the PRE exposure loading protocol, 48 hours before. Classical building the centurion, the biology that enters the festival is the biology you built the week before. Pre-exposure loading is not about making substances safe. Nothing in this guide makes unsafe substances safe. Pre-exposure loading is about ensuring that the biological systems most stressed by substance exposure, methylation, glutathione/antioxidant defense, neurotransmitter synthesis, mitochondrial function, are at maximum capacity before they are stressed. The net is as strong as you made it before you needed it. 4.1, the Universal Foundation, 48 hours before any festival. 4.2, substance-specific preloading additions. 4.3, what not to preload. Warning: these common enhancement supplements are contraindicated in peri-exposure loading. 5-HTP same day as MDMA, serotonin syndrome risk when combined with a serotonin-releasing compound. 5-HTP the night before only. St. John's wort, CYP3A4 inducer that accelerates clearance of MDMA and many other substances, unpredictably changing pharmacokinetics. Also serotonin syndrome risk with serotonergic substances. Grapefruit or grapefruit juice, CYP3A4 inhibitor, dramatically slows clearance of many substances. Standard doses become effective overdoses. L-tyrosine same day as amphetamine or cocaine, while tyrosine preloads dopamine precursors. Same-day dosing with dopamine-releasing substances can amplify cardiovascular effects. Melatonin within 6 hours of planned stimulant use, timing conflict, not dangerous but counterproductive. High-dose B vitamins containing folic acid, especially for MTHFR carriers preloading for a festival. Folic acid may worsen the methylation impairment you are trying to protect against. 5 MTHF only. Protocol 05, the during exposure firewall, at the festival. Classical building the centurion, the net is under you. These are the rules that keep you above it. This protocol applies the moment you arrive at the venue. Not if, when. The festival environment is a substance environment. Even if your personal intention is full abstinence, you are inhaling secondhand cannabis, you are in a hot environment, you are dehydrated, you are sleep deprived. The during exposure firewall is for all of that, and for the scenario where the substance encounter becomes active. 5.1, the Universal During Festival Rules. 5.2, the Genomic Rule Additions. If MTHFR confirmed, alcohol reduction is more important for you than for your peers. One drink produces more methylation demand than it appears to from the outside. The gap between fine and accumulating damage is narrower for you. If CYP2D6 poor metabolizer, you do not feel MDMA faster, you accumulate it longer. The person who says, it's kicking in differently than usual at hour 3 is in the accumulation window. Stop. Do not redose. The pharmacokinetics are not breaking, they are working exactly as your gene predicts. If GABA2 high risk, alcohol is your specific substance at this event. Not cocaine. Not MDMA. Not ketamine. Alcohol is where your genome creates the steepest gradient. Identify it. Know it. The hard no list has this at the top for you specifically. If CYP2B6*6 poor metabolizer, ketamine's duration will be longer than your peers experience. The extended dissociation is not overdose. It is pharmacokinetics. It will resolve. But do not add more to extend an effect that is already extended by your metabolism. Protocol 06, the post-exposure protocol, the 72-hour restore point. Classical building the centurion, the night is over. The pharmacology is not. The compendium's HIV architecture framework, PEP acts as a system restore point. Time criticality, must be initiated within 72 hours. The substance post-exposure protocol operates on the same logic. The 72 hours after a substance event are the restore window, the period when the methylation rebuild, neurotransmitter recovery, and neurological repair are most accessible. Start immediately. Not tomorrow. Not when you feel better. Now. 6.1, the post-exposure timeline. 6.2, the MTHFR specific post-exposure priority. Warning: MTHFR homozygous post-exposure recovery is specifically slower than peers. If your recovery from a festival event consistently takes longer than friends at equivalent exposure, this is your MTHFR telling you something important. Start 5-MTHF within 2 hours of returning from the event, not in the morning. The methylation demand has begun and the cycle needs substrate immediately. Methylcobalamin sublingual on waking, the active B12 form, sublingual for maximum absorption. Do not take folic acid-containing supplements in the recovery period, multivitamins, B-complexes, energy drinks with B vitamins, until you are confirmed non-MTHFR variant. Folic acid may impair the methylation recovery you are trying to support. Homocysteine will be elevated post-exposure in MTHFR carriers. Betaine/TMG 500 mg helps clear it via the alternative BHMT pathway. This is the recovery methylation shortcut when the primary pathway is impaired. Protocol 07, Coping Mechanisms and Studies, what the substance was managing. Classical building: the centurion, the net catches you. The work teaches you to stand without it. The compendium C28 framework names it directly: the Olympian of nothing becomes an Olympian of something real. Same engine. Different address. The substance was providing something. The question is what? The safety net is not the answer to that question. The safety net is the time and space to find the answer. 7.1, what the substance was managing. 7.2, keep your studies alive. This is the compendium's principle, stated plainly: substances borrow from your future study. Every hour spent in the pharmacological version of the state you need is an hour not spent building the natural version of it. The coping mechanisms that matter are skills, and skills require sustained study. Meditation, 20 minutes daily is the minimum. The DMN suppression that dissociatives, cannabis, and psychedelics access pharmacologically is accessible through 6 to 12 months of consistent daily practice. The study cannot be skipped. The results are not immediate. They compound. Physical training, the endorphin and anandamide architecture is not available on demand, it is built through consistent vigorous practice. 4+ sessions per week is the maintenance dose. Skipping training for festival recovery weeks is the specific pattern that breaks the natural architecture at the moment it is most needed. Intellectual engagement, the cognitive states that substances approximate, flow, focus, insight, are more reliably and more deeply accessed through genuine intellectual mastery at the challenge skill frontier. If you are not currently at the frontier of something that genuinely demands your full capacity, this is the gap that drugs are often filling. Social investment, the oxytocin and endorphin of genuine human connection, not parasocial, not screen-mediated, not festival context, requires deliberate cultivation. Schedule it. The person who only connects at festivals is the person most vulnerable to the festival context becoming their primary social reality. 7.3, don't overpower the systems. Classical building: the centurion, support the system. Don't substitute for it. The specific principle J.R. Token articulates, don't use drugs to overpower the systems, is the recovery kernel's most fundamental pharmacological position, applied to the pre-exposure context. The recovery kernel supplement approach is not a substitute for substances. It is the opposite architecture, supporting the systems that substances overpower, so that those systems become increasingly capable of producing the states the substances were approximating. The goal is not to need the supplements indefinitely either. The compendium names it, safety nets, not dependencies. Scaffolding that comes down. Protocol 08, the PRE exposed, if you have already encountered substances. Classical building the centurion, already been exposed. Not yet on a trajectory. This is your rescue protocol. The pre-exposed person is not in recovery, they don't have a dependency. They are at the most important decision point in the entire arc, the moment after exposure but before the pattern is established. The recovery kernel's framework is as powerful at this moment as it is in full recovery, because the same biological systems are involved, the same genetics determine the risk, and the same natural architecture is the answer. 8.1 What pre-exposed means. You have used substances at festivals, parties, or social contexts, once, several times, or as a regular pattern. You have not developed physical dependence or withdrawal. You have not experienced significant consequences to health, relationships, or function. Something has prompted you to read this guide, which means something has registered as a signal that the current pattern warrants attention. The compendium, the substance was a signal. What was it signaling? The pre-exposed person does not need recovery. They need the insight the recovery kernel provides, the specific biology that made the substance compelling, and the specific architecture that makes the substance unnecessary. 8.2 The pre-exposed rescue protocol. 8.3 The specific warning signs that pre-exposed has become more. Warning: if any of these are present, the pre-exposed protocol is insufficient. The recovery kernel's substance-specific guides are the appropriate resource. Using to manage a specific emotional state, anxiety, depression, loneliness, rather than for social or recreational context. The interval between use is shortening rather than lengthening over time. Thinking about the next use more than feels proportionate to the event. Using more than intended at each event despite intention to use less. Physical symptoms: nausea, irritability, anxiety, insomnia, when the usual interval passes without use. Relationships or commitments affected by the substance use or its recovery period. The pre-exposed protocol is not designed for these scenarios. The recovery kernel's specific substance guides are. But the earlier you identify which guide you need, the more of the natural architecture you can build before the recovery work requires its full application. Protocol 09, the nutraceutical principle: don't build a supplement dependency. Classical building the centurion, the scaffolding must come down. Protocol 15.5 of the compendium is the architecture of this guide. The compendium's section 15.5 addresses safety nets, not dependencies. The scaffolding must go up when the building is still unstable. But scaffolding is, by definition, temporary. It exists to support the structure while the structure gains the capacity to hold itself. Scaffolding that never comes down is not support. It is a permanent exoskeleton, and the person inside it never develops the musculature to stand on their own. This principle applies directly to the supplement stack in this guide. The nutraceuticals, 5-MTHF, methylcobalamin, NAC, magnesium, omega-3, are not a lifetime substitution for the things they are supporting. They are tools for specific windows. They close the biological gap while the natural architecture is being built. They do not replace the natural architecture. 9.1 What supplements do and don't do. 9.2 Food-derived neurotransmitter support: eat first, supplement second. J.R. Tolkien's specific principle: don't live a life on food-derived nutraceuticals for the brain. The supplement is not the first intervention. Food is. The supplement addresses the gap between what food can provide and what the genetic variant or current demand requires. The safety net self-check, before every festival. Classical building the centurion, 10 questions at the kitchen table. This is the pre-match. Answer these before accepting any festival invitation. Write the answers down. Share them with the person you are going with. The decision made here is more reliable than the decision made at the venue. The net is under you. Classical building the centurion, the scaffolding goes up. The building gains its strength. The scaffolding comes down. The Recovery Kernel Safety Net is not a permanent structure. The compendium section 15.5 is the closing instruction: the scaffolding must go up when the building is still unstable. But scaffolding is, by definition, temporary. This guide, the supplements it prescribes, the pre-match protocol it provides, all of it is scaffolding. The building is the life you are building while the scaffolding is up. The person who goes to the festival with their MTHFR stack loaded, their hard no list established, their pre-match completed, their post-exposure protocol planned, and their coping mechanism study alive and active, that person is not living in a safety net. They are using a safety net to live more fully. The person who needs this guide forever, who cannot attend a festival without the pre-match, who cannot recover without the protocol, who cannot build the natural architecture because the events are too frequent for it to establish itself, that person has identified the real question. The question is not, how do I protect myself from the festival? The question is, what does the festival context represent that my life outside it does not provide? DNA first. Party second. Pre-match before you accept. The night moves fast. Your code moves faster. Tool suite, biohacker_multi_domain_profiler.py biohacker_final_edition_with_json_import.html peptide_advisor_with_oral_health.html. Recovery Kernel Complete Centurion Compendium, Protocols 07, 09, 15, 17 Centurion Papers C15, C28, C37 Section 15.5. Crisis, call or text 988 Emergency, 911 SAMHSA, 1-800-662-4357. The Recovery Kernel Safety Net Festival Pre-Exposure Protection Protocol. The Recovery Kernel Safety Net. Addendum. Multi-day events, polydrug stacking, cellular nutrition under duress. The questions the original safety net didn't answer. Section A, the 72-hour window, when does it actually start? Classical building the centurion, the clock does not start when you decide to stop. It starts when you actually stop. The safety net describes a 72-hour restore point. What it doesn't address is the scenario you've raised, Thursday evening through Monday morning at 11 a.m. 5 nights. Polydrug. Overlapping substances. The 72-hour window cannot begin until the last exposure ends. And the biology of what happens during those 5 days before the window opens is not the same biology that enters a single night 72-hour recovery. A point 1, multi-day cumulative depletion, not additive, exponential. Single event recovery assumes a system that was depleted once and is rebuilding from a known depletion. Multi-day polydrug events produce cumulative depletion. Each day's exposure depletes a system that was already depleted from the day before and has not been given adequate time or substrate to rebuild. By day 4, you are not 4 times as depleted as after a single night. You are significantly more depleted than 4 individual nights would produce, because each subsequent day's depletion occurs against a baseline that was already impaired. A point 2, what active mitigation looks like during a multi-day event. Classical building the centurion, the 72-hour window cannot begin until you stop. But you can reduce what it has to recover from. The goal during a multi-day event is not to make ongoing polydrug use safe, it is to reduce the cumulative depletion so the 72-hour window starts from a less extreme baseline. Every intervention during the event reduces the recovery deficit. Section B, the Thursday through Monday stack, what is actually happening? Classical building the centurion, 5 substances. 5 simultaneous mechanisms. One body trying to manage all of them. The stack you've described, MDMA, GHB, methamphetamine, cocaine, ketamine, is the classic circuit party polydrug profile. Each substance is doing something specific. Understanding what each is providing and how they interact explains both the experience and the recovery architecture. This is not a judgment. It is pharmacology. B.1, What each substance is providing in this stack. B.2, the ketamine leg cramp mechanism, why it actually works and why that's both the point and the problem. Classical building the centurion, ketamine is a clinical analgesic. You are using it correctly. And you are also masking a warning signal. The leg cramps from dancing, gym, and beach are driven by lactic acid accumulation in muscle tissue, magnesium and potassium depletion from sweating, glycogen depletion from sustained physical output, and the wind-up phenomenon, where repeated painful stimuli in the spinal cord dorsal horn produce progressively amplified pain signals through NMDA receptor activation. Ketamine's NMDA antagonism specifically interrupts the wind-up phenomenon. It is not imaginary. This is the same mechanism that makes ketamine clinically useful for fibromyalgia, complex regional pain syndrome, and post-surgical pain when opioids fail. The ketamine at the circuit party is providing genuine, pharmacologically appropriate analgesia for a genuine, physically real pain. The problem is not that it works. The problem is that pain is a signal. White heavy checkmark sanctuary, the harm reduction resolution, treat the leg cramp cause, not just the signal. Electrolyte replacement, sodium plus potassium plus magnesium, addresses the primary driver. Glycogen replacement, fruit, simple carbohydrates, see section C, addresses the energy depletion. The ketamine can continue serving its other functions in the stack without bearing the weight of a pain signal it is suppressing but not solving. B.3, the GHB timing crisis in this specific stack. Warning: this is the most critical harm reduction point in this entire addendum. In the MDMA plus meth plus cocaine plus ketamine plus GHB stack, the stimulant substances mask the sedating signal from GHB. You cannot feel when GHB is taking full effect. The timer is your only protection. GHB's therapeutic window, the range between enjoyable and unconscious, is approximately 1.5 G of variation. The dose that produces pleasant disinhibition for one person produces unconsciousness in another because of body weight, prior exposure, concurrent substances, and individual GHB receptor variation. In this specific stack, all four other substances are either stimulants, MDMA, meth, cocaine, or perceptual modulators, ketamine, that alter your ability to feel the sedating signal from GHB. The arousal from meth tells your body it is awake and energized. The ketamine tells your pain and sensory systems a modified story. The result: you may be approaching GHB unconsciousness while feeling, from the inside, alert and functional. The non-negotiable rule: set a physical timer on your phone for your GHB interval, minimum 2.5 hours between doses in this stack. Give your phone to a sober or less intoxicated person and tell them not to give it back before the timer ends. The rule is not negotiable on day 4 because your ability to judge your own intoxication is at its minimum on day 4. B.4, MDMA plus methamphetamine, the serotonin neurotoxicity amplification. Warning: the combination of MDMA and methamphetamine is substantially more neurotoxic to serotonin terminals than either alone. This is documented in the neuroscience literature. The mechanism is additive oxidative damage to 5-HT nerve endings. Both MDMA and methamphetamine produce free radicals during their metabolism in serotonin and dopamine nerve terminals. Methamphetamine's specific toxicity to dopaminergic terminals, the DAT-mediated oxidative damage, is well documented. MDMA's 5-HT terminal toxicity is also documented. When both are present simultaneously in the terminal's metabolic environment, the oxidative stress is compounded. The neuroprotective stack, NAC, EGCG, ALA, vitamin C, is therefore most critical on the days when both substances are being used, not as permission to use both, but as the harm reduction architecture for the specific combination you've described. Section C, Cellular Nutrition Under Duress, the exchange material. Classical building the centurion, your cells are running a 5-day biochemical marathon. They need the material to keep running. This is the gap you correctly identified. The Safety Net 72-hour protocol assumes adequate nutrition. The circuit party nutrition reality is, the mimosa at the brunch, eating light for aesthetic and practical reasons, the hot dog at the vending stand, the fast food at 4 a.m. None of this is providing what the cells actually need during polydrug exposure. The cellular exchange material concept is exactly right. The cells under substance duress are running specific biochemical processes at accelerated rates: neurotransmitter synthesis, antioxidant defense, DNA repair, membrane reconstruction, and all of these processes require specific substrate. Without the substrate, the processes fail. Without the processes, the damage accumulates. Without adequate repair, the recovery is longer and deeper. See point 1, what cells actually need during multi-day polydrug exposure. See point 2, the mimosa at the crab leg brunch, what you're actually getting. Classical building the centurion, the crab legs are actually good. The mimosa has 2 ingredients and only one is useful. See point 3, the honest gut prep/eating light conversation. This needs to be addressed directly because it is a real dietary practice in the MSM circuit party community with real nutritional consequences that harm reduction frameworks almost never acknowledge. Bowel preparation for receptive anal sex involves dietary restriction and often enemas or bowel prep products. The nutritional consequences are significant reduction in dietary fiber intake in the days before the event, microbiome disruption, reduced GABA production from gut bacteria, increased anxiety vulnerability, higher perceived need for GHB and other anxiolytics. Protein restriction, low residue diet, reduced amino acid pool for neurotransmitter synthesis. MDMA is flooding a serotonin system with reduced substrate reserve. Caloric restriction combined with the physical output of a multi-day festival, dancing, gym, beach, glycogen depletion. Accelerated leg cramps arrive sooner. Ketamine for analgesia begins earlier in the event. Enema/bowel prep, electrolyte disruption, magnesium and potassium depletion before the event begins. Electrolyte depletion baseline is lower entering the festival. White heavy checkmark, sanctuary, the harm reduction approach, not abstinence from gut prep, but a nutritional compensation strategy. 3 days before the event, prioritize protein and B vitamins at every meal, even within a lower residue diet. Eggs, white fish, white rice are low residue and high protein. Day of the event, amino acid supplement, L-glutamine 5G plus L-tyrosine 500 mg, in the morning if food intake is restricted. These provide the synthesis substrate that dietary restriction removes. Electrolyte preloading, the day before the event, coconut water or electrolyte drink to compensate for any bowel prep electrolyte loss. Carry protein powder or amino acid capsules in your bag. When food is limited and gut prep is the reason, the supplement fills the gap the food restriction created. Section D, Practical Festival Nutrition, what's available and what to choose. Classical building the centurion, you are at a festival. The Michelin restaurant is not coming to you. Here is what to do with what is actually there. D.1, the hierarchy of available festival foods. D.2, what to carry in your bag, the festival nutrition kit. The most pharmacologically efficient investment for a multi-day circuit event is a small kit carried throughout the event. This addresses the gap between what the venue provides and what the cells need. Section E, the Thursday to Monday protocol, day by day. Classical building the centurion, applied. Specific. For the event you described. The addendum summary. Classical building the centurion, what the original safety net missed and what you now have. The 72-hour window is real. It starts when you actually stop. What you do in the 5 days before the window opens determines how deep the hole is when the window starts. The nutrition that circuit party culture systematically neglects, the protein at the brunch, the electrolytes every 2 hours, the NAC each morning, the Brazil nuts in the pocket, is the cellular exchange material that determines how much recovery the 72 hours can accomplish. The crab legs are good. The mimosa's OJ half is good. The banana is one of the best festival foods available. The hot dog beats no food. The fast food stop beats arriving home with nothing. None of it is optimal. All of it is better than leaving the cells with nothing to work with during the most demanding biochemical week they will have all year. DNA first. Party second. Feed your cells while you're at it. Recovery Kernel Safety Net Addendum Multi-Day Festival Pre-Exposure Protection. Crisis, call or text 988 Emergency, 911 SAMHSA, 1-800-662-4357. The Recovery Kernel Safety Net. Addendum Part 2. The Alternative Pathway Reinforcement Trilogy. P5-PR5 calcium glycinate. The 5-day repair window, the abstinence reset, the 14-day full rebalance. The Temple Protocols, Dance Music as Sacred Study. Section F of the Recovery Kernel Safety Net Addendum Series. Read alongside Part 1, Multi-Day Events and Cellular Nutrition, and the original Safety Net document. Section F, the Alternative Pathway Reinforcement Trilogy. Classical Building the Centurion. When the primary roads are damaged, 3 specific compounds open the bypass routes. The Safety Net Supplement Framework, 5-MTHF, methylcobalamin, NAC, magnesium, addresses the primary synthesis and repair pathways. What it does not explicitly address is what happens when those primary pathways are under such sustained stress that they cannot carry the full biochemical load. After a multi-day polydrug event, the methylation cycle is depleted, the liver's phase 1 and phase 2 detox enzymes are taxed, and the glutathione pool is near zero. The primary roads are damaged. The alternative pathways need activation. The trilogy identified here is P5P, pyridoxal 5-phosphate, active B6, R5P, riboflavin 5-phosphate, active B2 as FMN, and calcium glycinate. They are not a substitute for the primary stack. They are the bypass activation system that keeps synthesis and repair running when the primary enzymatic pathways are overwhelmed. F.1, Why active forms, not standard vitamins. The critical principle that distinguishes the trilogy from standard B vitamin supplementation, after a multi-day polydrug event, the liver is handling its maximum metabolic load. Standard B vitamins, pyridoxine for B6, riboflavin for B2, require hepatic conversion to their active coenzyme forms before they can function. The liver performing this conversion is the liver that is simultaneously clearing MDMA metabolites, meth metabolites, cocaine metabolites, GHB breakdown products, and ketamine degradation compounds. Asking it to also convert inactive vitamins to their active cofactor forms is asking it to do more when it is least capable of doing more. Active forms, P5P and R5P, bypass this conversion requirement entirely. They arrive at the enzyme binding site in the form the enzyme can use immediately, without requiring a liver that is already at capacity to do the activating work. F.2, P5P, pyridoxal 5-phosphate, the direct enzyme activator. Classical Building the Centurion, the active B6 that reaches the AADC enzyme without asking an overloaded liver for help. Dose and timing, P5, P25 to 50 mg, morning with food. The form must be P5P, pyridoxal 5-phosphate, not pyridoxine hydrochloride, standard B6. Can be started during the event, morning of day 2, 3, 4, as part of the active mitigation protocol, not just post-event. F.3, R5P, riboflavin 5-phosphate, FMN, the glutathione regenerator and MTHFR restorer. Classical Building the Centurion, the cofactor that recharges glutathione after it has quenched a free radical. Glutathione works as an antioxidant by donating an electron to neutralize a free radical. In doing so, it becomes oxidized glutathione, GSSG. The enzyme glutathione reductase converts GSSG back to reduced, active, glutathione, GSH. This regeneration step requires FAD, flavin adenine dinucleotide, which is the oxidized form of riboflavin. R5P provides the active riboflavin cofactor directly. Dose and timing, are 5p 25 to 50 mg, morning with food. The form is riboflavin 5-phosphate, FMN, sometimes labeled as active riboflavin or riboflavin 5-phosphate monosodium. Not regular riboflavin, though standard riboflavin is better than nothing when our 5p is unavailable. Can be taken during the event alongside P5p in the morning mitigation stack. F.4, calcium glycinate, the third synthesis component and dual-function mineral. Classical building the centurion, not magnesium glycinate, calcium glycinate. The third leg of the glutathione triangle and the neurotransmitter release gate. The safety net already recommends magnesium glycinate for NMDA modulation, muscle function, and sleep. Calcium glycinate is a distinct compound serving different functions. The confusion between them is common. They are not interchangeable. Calcium glycinate specifically provides the complete glutathione synthesis map, NAC cysteine. P5p, CBS activation, additional cysteine from transulfuration. Calcium glycinate glycine. Dietary protein plus glutamine supplementation glutamate. R5p glutathione reductase activation recycling of spent glutathione. This is the complete alternative pathway reinforcement system for glutathione restoration after the primary antioxidant defense has been exhausted. Dose and timing, calcium glycinate, 200 to 400 mg elemental calcium, evening, distinct from magnesium glycinate timing if both are being used. Take with the evening meal during recovery days. Note, calcium and magnesium compete for absorption when taken simultaneously at high doses. Space them by 2+ hours if using both. F.5, the trilogy as a system, how they work together. Section G, the repair windows, 5 days, 14 days, and the abstinence reset. Classical building the centurion, the body has its own architecture for repair. The trilogy enables it. Time completes it. G.1, the 5-day active repair window. The first 5 days after the last exposure are the period of highest biological responsiveness to the supplement and nutritional interventions. The enzymatic machinery for repair is active, the synthesis pathways have adequate substrate if supplementation is maintained, and the neurotransmitter receptor systems are in the process of upregulating back toward baseline sensitivity. This is the window when the trilogy, NAC, 5-MTHF, and nutrition together produce the most impact per dose. G.2, the 14-day full rebalance. The 5-day window completes the acute repair phase for most profiles. The 14-day full rebalance is the extended timeline for MTHFR C677T homozygous individuals, multi-day polydrug events, the Thursday through Monday scenario, anyone who experienced significant MDMA plus meth combined neurotoxic exposure, CYP2D6 poor metabolizers, slower substance clearance means the oxidative stress has been longer acting, and anyone with a high NM or MX domain score, indicating baseline neuromodulatory burden. G.3, the abstinence reset, the neurotransmitter refresh cycle. Classical building the centurion, the most powerful recovery intervention available is also the only one that is free. The abstinence cycle embedded within the 14-day protocol is not merely the absence of substance use. It is an active biological process. The Compendium C28 framework names it in the recovery context. The natural architecture that is built during abstinence is not just the absence of the artificial one. It is the construction of the real one. What happens to the neurotransmitter systems during a genuine abstinence cycle, not just the 72 hours between events, but a deliberate 30-day minimum abstinence window. White heavy checkmark sanctuary, the 30-day abstinence cycle is the most powerful single intervention available after a multi-day polydrug event. The trilogy enables it. The exercise sustains it. The natural architecture that is built during those 30 days is not a substitute for the festival experience. It is the neurological infrastructure that makes the festival experience more profound when it returns, because the system receiving it is not depleted. G.4, the trilogy timing, during versus after the event. Section H, the Temple Protocols, Dance Music as Sacred Study. Classical Building the Centurion, what you are attending is not just a party. Know what it is. The Recovery Kernel Substance Masking Framework asks, what was the substance providing? For the circuit party and rave context, this question has an answer that most harm reduction frameworks do not acknowledge and most attendees have not fully articulated. The answer is not merely pharmacological. It is phenomenological, philosophical, and for many who attend these events, spiritual. This section addresses dance music culture not as a party context for which harm reduction tools are needed, but as a legitimate form of sacred study, community ritual, and altered state exploration that has its own philosophical coherence, its own ethical framework, and its own reintegration requirements. H.1, the DJ as priest and shaman. Classical Building the Centurion, the person behind the decks is conducting a ceremony. They were not hired to play background music. The distinction between a DJ and a bedroom playlist is architectural, not merely technical. The priest in a religious ceremony is not reading interesting passages at random. They are conducting a ritual with intentional structure, invocation, teaching, peak, descent, blessing, dismissal. The shaman in an indigenous healing ceremony is not playing drums because the rhythm is pleasant. They are using sound at specific frequencies to facilitate specific states in the collective body of participants. The DJ's set is structurally identical. The opening selection invokes the space, establishes the consciousness level, the musical grammar, the relationship between the sound and the room. The build creates the communal crescendo. The peak is the specific state that the entire preceding architecture was building toward. The descent brings the collective consciousness back from the peak with care. The closing is the blessing and the release. The DJs whose names are attached to the great events, Carl Cox at Space Ibiza, Sven Vath at Berghain, Frankie Knuckles at the Warehouse, Larry Levon at Paradise Garage, are not famous because they had good taste in records. They are famous because they understood the ceremony. They knew when to hold the frequency, when to shift it, when to open the space and when to bring it home. The great DJ set is an act of genuine spiritual leadership. H.2, the flashing lights as sermon element. Classical Building the Centurion, the visual environment is not decoration. It is theology. The Catholic cathedral uses stained glass, candles, incense, architecture, and the physical orientation of the worshipper toward the altar to construct a specific experiential state before a word of the sermon is spoken. The totality of the sensory environment is the preliminary teaching. The visual language communicates the scale of what is being approached. The lighting design at Berghain, at Space Ibiza, at Club Space Miami is not the work of a lighting technician filling space. It is architecture of consciousness. The strobe at specific frequencies, 6 to 10 Hz, in the theta-alpha brainwave range, produces genuine neural entrainment. The brain's electrical activity begins oscillating in synchrony with the visual stimulus. This is measurable in EEG. It is the same mechanism used by indigenous drumming traditions, Sufi whirling, and tantric ritual to facilitate non-ordinary states. The darkness between the strobes matters as much as the light. The bass frequency at the sub-20 Hz range is felt in the body before it is heard by the ear. The resonance in the sternum and abdomen is not a side effect of loud music. It is physiological induction of the states that other traditions reach through breath work, fasting, or physical ordeal. Know this when you attend. The lights are part of the sermon. The visual environment is theology. The information being communicated is not incidental, it is the teaching, arriving through the sensory channels before the conscious mind has been asked to receive it. H.3, PLUR as philosophy, what the rave teaches. Classical Building the Centurion, peace, love, unity, respect, for principles the dance floor has been teaching since 1988. PLUR emerged from early American rave culture in the late 1980s as an ethical framework for the specific social contract of the dance floor. Its origins are credited to various corners of the New York and Chicago house scenes and their successors. Its 4 principles were not chosen arbitrarily. PLUR is a genuine philosophical framework. It is not as systematically elaborated as Stoicism or Buddhist ethics. It does not have the textual tradition of the Bhagavad Gita or the Tao Te Ching. But it is teaching the same things through a different medium, and it is teaching them in the context of an embodied, communal, altered state experience that makes the teaching land differently than a text can. H.4 The higher states as legitimate spiritual seeking. Classical building the centurion, the neuroscience confirms what the mystics reported. The states are real. The compendium describes the LSD and psilocybin experience as prefrontal inhibition, creating a sense of vast significance. It uses precision language, as it should. But it also acknowledges that what the precision language describes is an actual experience of something real, not an illusion created by chemicals. The specific states that the dance floor and its substances facilitate, the dissolution of the ordinary self-referential mind, default mode network suppression, the experience of unity with others, endorphin oxytocin serotonin convergence, the sense that the music is communicating something beyond information, 5-HT2A agonism in the auditory and association cortex, the feeling that what is being experienced is meaningful rather than merely pleasant, BDNF and neuroplastic openness. These states have been sought, documented, and integrated by every mystical tradition in human history. Indigenous shamanic practice uses plant medicines, drumming, and community ritual to reach them. The Sufi uses daikr, breath control, and whirling. The Zen Buddhist uses zazen and koan. The Pentecostal Christian uses speaking in tongues and communal prayer in music. The circuit party attender uses MDMA, ketamine, and Carl Cox. The states they are reaching are not identical. But they are overlapping. And the neuroscience confirms it. fMRI studies of meditation, psilocybin experience, and peak flow states show the same DMN suppression, the same prefrontal quieting, the same increase in functional connectivity across brain networks. The question that this recognition raises is, what do you do with the state you reached? This is where every mystical tradition developed its reintegration architecture, the monastery, the sangha, the Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, the sweat lodge return ceremony, and where the rave culture's reintegration infrastructure has been most underdeveloped. H.5 The music as teacher, know what you are studying. Classical building the centurion, the DJ is the priest. The music is the scripture. Knowing its language deepens the teaching. The music itself is a text. It has a grammar. Understanding the grammar changes what you can receive from the sermon. H.6 PLUR in the world, the reintegration problem. Classical building the centurion, the lesson from the pulpit requires value when you return to the congregation that did not attend. Every religious tradition faces the reintegration problem. The monk who leaves the monastery re-enters a world that does not share the monastery's values. The pilgrim who returns from Mecca re-enters a community that did not make the journey. The psychedelic user who returns from a profound session re-enters a world that is moving at ordinary speed with ordinary concerns. The rave attendee who returns from winter party, from Berghain, from Ibiza, with the residue of PLUR, of unity, of the specific quality of human connection that the dance floor taught, re-enters a world where PLUR is not the operative framework. Where people do not look at strangers with agape. Where the self-referential mind is back in full operation. Where Monday morning's commute is nothing like Saturday night's peak. The reintegration problem is, what do you do with what you learned? The teaching from the DJ's pulpit was real. The unity you experienced on the dance floor was real. The love, whether MDMA facilitated or genuine or both simultaneously, which is possible, was real. What does it mean when it returns to the world where those states are not normative? H.7 The student at the temple. Classical building the centurion, the DJ teaches. The attendee studies. The lesson requires a student who is prepared to receive it. The student who attends a lecture at the greatest university having not slept, having not eaten, having not prepared, having depleted the neurochemical systems through which understanding arrives, will hear the lecture and receive very little of it. The lecture was given. The transmission did not occur because the receiving apparatus was not ready. This is the pharmacological argument for harm reduction at the festival. Not, protect yourself from the music. But, be in a state where the music can actually teach you. The neurotransmitter systems depleted by the multi-day polydrug stack are the same systems through which the music communicates. The serotonin system through which MDMA produces its empathogenic quality is the same system through which music produces its emotional resonance. The dopamine system that the stimulants flood is the same system through which the peak of the DJ set produces its euphoria. The trilogy, P5P, R5P, calcium glycinate, is not just damage mitigation. It is the maintenance of the receiving apparatus. The attendee who has preloaded appropriately, who maintains the morning mitigation stack, who eats the crab legs instead of skipping food, who takes the electrolytes, is not only protecting their body from harm. They are maintaining their capacity to receive what the teacher is offering. The abstinence reset between events is not deprivation. It is the period when the student processes what was taught. When the receptors recover their sensitivity so they can receive the next teaching fully rather than hearing it through the static of a depleted system. The 30-day reset is the study period between the sermons. H.8, what you are studying, the curriculum. If dance music culture is a legitimate form of study, and this guide proposes that it is, then the student benefits from knowing the curriculum they are in. What does the tradition teach, and through what means? The temple and the laboratory, two frameworks for the same territory. Classical building the centurion, the recovery kernel holds both. The pharmacology and the phenomenology. The enzyme and the experience. The recovery kernel was built as a precision instrument, genomic profiles, CYP450 metabolizer status, methylation cycle support, NMDA modulation, the 72-hour restore window, the trilogy of active cofactors. It is laboratory medicine applied to the territory that clinical medicine has largely not entered. The dance music tradition is a precision instrument of a different kind, the 4/4 grid and the harmonic series, the community ethics of PLUR, the ceremony of the DJ set, the shamanic use of rhythm and frequency for communal altered state induction. It is phenomenological wisdom accumulated across 4 decades of a tradition that clinical medicine has also largely not entered. Both are approaching the same territory, the human capacity for non-ordinary states of consciousness, communal connection beyond ordinary social organization, and the integration of what those states teach into how we live. One approaches through the language of biochemistry. The other approaches through the language of music, community, and ritual. Neither is sufficient alone. The student who knows their MTHFR status and preloads with P5P, R5P, and calcium glycinate before attending, and who also knows that Carl Cox is conducting a ceremony and that the flashing lights are part of the sermon and that PLUR is a philosophical framework worth taking seriously, is equipped for both what will happen at the cellular level and what will happen at the experiential level. DNA first. Party second. Know what you're studying. Return with the lesson. Recovery Kernel Safety Net Addendum Part 2, the Alternative Pathway Reinforcement Trilogy and the Temple Protocols. Read with, Safety Net, Original, Addendum Part 1, Multi-Day Events and Cellular Nutrition, the World Genomic Map. Crisis, call or text 988 Emergency, 911.